Mic on.
No, that's annoying. All right, everybody. Welcome to our third episode of mobile development from start to publish. We're going to be implementing Microsoft Extensions tonight. They have a great setup for dependency injection and configuration that we're going to be using. So we're going to go ahead and start off by including our NuGet package. So we're going to grab the NuGet package. If you've done ASP.NET Core, you're probably familiar with extensions. Oh, installed. We want browse. We obviously don't have it installed already, so let's get it installed. We want JSON. We're going to be able to configure it with JSON. And we're going to want, let's get started with that. We want file providers. File providers. And we're going to go with embedded. And this will allow us to pull in a JSON file that's embedded in our project. Okay. And let's add a new class called Startup. Obviously, we wanted a public class, and we want to do a static action configuration builder. And that is going to come from our Microsoft Extensions configuration namespace. And we're going to use builder. And if you've dealt with this before, this is pretty much on par with what you would do with ASP.NET. The only major difference here is where we're getting our file from. Instead of providing a string, we're going to do a provider. Oh, not set up. Oh, this should be set up. Did I misnamed it. Okay, wrong. I was looking at something else. Yes, I would. Okay, so we've renamed to setup, not startup. We want to provide the assembly and the namespace. And then we're going to provide the path name. And we'll add this in a second. So we're not going to change, and it's not optional. Okay. And later we can go add additional settings that will override this one, but for right now we're just using this. Okay. So we'll need to add application settings. We're going to use a text file, but we're going to add the JSON extension. We don't have any settings at the moment, but we will shortly. Now we need to set this as an embedded resource. So it gets embedded with our assembly. And then we're going to pop into our app. looking over my notes here. We're going to add to our constructor action configuration builder configuration. We're not going to use that quite yet. And then we're going to do we're going to find all references to this. And we're going to call setup.configuration. Setup.configuration. So that'll provide us with our configuration. That might be a bit of a problem. I might have to go back and look at my notes for this. Let's add configuration builder. Now we're going to configure for net standard project. And we're going to attach it to this configuration builder so we can, this is an extension method. So we'll have to make setup static. And let's go ahead and move this down here. And we're going to return builder. So we can use a fluent or a fluid API. That means you just keep calling a method from the previous method. And let's clean this up a bit. So we're going to do configuration builder, configuration, new configuration builder. That way we can get our root configuration, and then we can do another static method that once again returns a configuration for the platform project. And then we can actually set some things specific to the platform in here. Go back over to our app. Get our configuration root. Configure the .NET Standard project, and then configure it for the platform. And then we can build. So when we initialize this, then we can pass in the configuration. So the next we want to replace the built-in Xamarin.Forms dependency service. We're going to use the Microsoft one in extensions. So we're going to add a new NuGet package. That is not what I wanted to do. Let's close that. Sorry about that. We're going to add manage NuGet. We're going to grab the dependency injection. Go back to our setup class. And if you've done dependency injection or ASP.NET Core, you will be familiar with this. And this will be what we use for all of our dependency injection. That is our service collection. So whenever we need a service, we will get it out of there. We'll add our platform services here. So we're going to do public static I service collection configure net standard project. This I service collection I configuration root. And we're going to return our service collection. And let's clean this up a little bit so it's a little easier to read. So we will put any of our .NET standards services in here that we set up, and then we will have a platform-specific one, configure platform project. And then we will call, oh, nope, back up. Yep, configure service collection. Oh, we need this, yep. Action, I service collection, I configuration root, and then call that configure. And this will call whatever action we pass that sets up all of the platform-specific configuration for service dependency injection for a service collection. And then we'll go back over to app. And now we have two parameters for our app. Import that so we have access to that. And then we need our iService provider, equals setup dot dependency injection dot configure. What did I do wrong here? Let's go back. Close that. Setup. Oh. Let's fix this. What are we looking for here? iService collection. Configuration root. And then we're going to build that. Did I forget a step? No, build service provider. So we'll build our service provider. And then we want to pass in our service provider into our app shell. So we're going to change our app shell to accept that. Hey R2, how's it going? Service provider. All right, so we got service provider. And then we want to be able to access this anywhere. So we're going to add an extension. Add class. We're going to do shell extension, or extensions, let's rename that. Got to be consistent. Yes. Make that public static. I can keep the chat on the window along with my notes. There we go. All right, so we want to be able to access the service provider from the shell. So we're going to do an extension method off of shell. Now we need to return a iService collection, which we actually need to put on app shell, but we'll do that in a second. Shell as app shell. And then we'll go into app shell, and then we're going to add a property. Public iService provider, service provider get set, and then let's actually define it up here. Now we're complaining about things. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we'll have to fix these. If we want to do additional, let's see here. If we want additional configuration, so we want configuration builder. We would add it here, but we don't want anything, so we're just going to have and then we need service collection, and we will add to this eventually, but we're not adding it to right now. Configuration root. So these are two lambdas or actions that we're using to configure that. And then let's actually go do this. That is the UWP. Let's do this in iOS. And oh, that was UWP, and then Android. So that should satisfy that for now. We don't really need to add anything yet. So let's add a way to create or set up view models. And we're going to be a little lazy about this. Instead of manually adding each one, we're going to add them all at once. Collection, add view models, type T, this service collection. Oh, we want to do the interface, not the implemented version. Collection. Okay. Then we're going to return service collection, scan, selector, from assembly, type of T dot assembly, add classes, filter in namespace of type of T as self with transient lifetime. And we're going to use a library called Scruder that'll help us scan for scan the assembly. So let's add another NuGet package, Scruder. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to add views. Did we do that as private? No. Static iService collection, add view. And we're going to provide the view, bind it to the ViewModel name. iService collection. Service collection. And then we're going to say where tview inherits from page. Import that. And then we're going to return service collection.add transient tview. Service provider lambda. And then we're going to use, we're going to create the view, activator utilities to create the instance of tview and provide it the service provider. No, that was create instance, not create factory. And then we're going to do some basic setup. We want to bind the view to the ViewModel. Get required service. TViewModel. And then we're going to we're not going to do that. We're going to do this later, but we're going to bind appearing and disappearing to loading methods or loading commands and unloading. And then we're going to return the view. So that's pretty simple. So we add the transient. There's some other events we could add in here, but we're not going to do that quite yet. Look through my notes. We can provide our own route factory, but let's look at logging. So we're going to start doing some logging using Microsoft.Extensions. You can use a few different options. You could use Serialog, for example. Well, we're not going to do that quite yet. Get that right? Okay. All right, so let's set up logging. iService collection, configure logging. There's some different options you can add here, but we're going to just do the console logger. Let's see if we get that working. Well, gotta fix that. Too many parentheses. Nope. What am I doing wrong here? Add logging. Builder.add console. There we go. Looking through my notes here for a second. You could add multiple things here, but for now we're just going to add the console. If I remember how to do this. Okay, we're just going to do that for now. It's going to use, we'll configure it later, but we will have logging available to us. So let's, yeah, call it. So let's add our own view model. So we do have this view model already, but now we're going to have items in the constructor. So we had this before, we were getting this out of dependency injection, but now we can get it out of, well, dependency injection still, but it's going to come from, excuse me, the constructor. So we'll do private read-only iData store campaign store as a field instead of a property, and then we can do campaign store. Any questions on that? Awfully quiet in chat. So setup, go back to setup. No, go to apps. So this should add all of the view models in this namespace. So we don't have to add each individual one. And then what else do we have? We have, okay, so we've got that, we're calling that. And then we do calling this, calling that. Configure logging, we need to configure logging. And then we've got add view models, and then add view. I'm going to do views.campaigns.campaign views. And then we want to bind that to our view models.campaigns.campaigns view models. All right. So that'll set up the binding for that. Okay. Now we want to set up our routing factory. Now this is a little more complicated. I will need to create another class for this. So we're going to call it add new folder factories at class mapped route factory. It will be of type T, route factory. We don't want to reference ourselves. Where T is an element. Need to do the import for that from Xamarin.Forms. And then we need to implement this. So implement abstract, get a create. Private read-only service provider. And then we've got our constructor that we need to make. It'll be mapped service provider. And then we will assign it to our field. And then we can use the service provider, underscore service provider. Get service, or no, do we want get service or get required service? Okay. So this knows, so this is going to return a type of T, right? And we know that's an element because of this up here, where the where statement. So we've already mapped it to an element. It has to be an element. So now we've got this set up. This will pull it out of our service provider. So if we want to we have a view, then we know where to get it from. So now, okay, so here is our routing register. Okay, we're going to leave those in place for now, but we're going to register a route. And then we're going to provide it the name of, we'll just do campaigns. And then we're going to access the service provider, get required service of type. We're going to use the name of our factory. So pop that down here. Mapped factory. No, mapped route factory of type. And then this is the campaign. So we're going to do views campaigns dot campaigns view. Oh, I have to import my dependency injection. Then I have to import my factories. All right, so this will return a mapped I feel like we're missing a step here. Anyway, so we've gotten our store set up. So let's configure that in our setup here. So we already know. Oh, somehow I skipped over here. Settings. So this is our configure. No, that's the configuration. We want the dependency set up here. Service collection. Add singleton. I mock store. Oh, do we have a mock store? No, we have a iData store. And we want to map that to mock campaign service for now. What am I doing wrong here? That looks right to me. What is our error? Type mock game service cannot be a parameter of type implementation and generic types of method. There is no implicit reference. Oh, I forgot to type. Campaign. Okay. So we've configured this. We want to do add. We could do that there, but we're not. Where do we put that? We put that in app. Let's move that into our setup. So this is everything we need for campaigns view. We could do something like configure service. No. Configure options. But we're not there yet. All right, so we have all this. Let's run it and see if we work. Just out of the bat. Nesting default constructor. Okay, so we need to get rid of this binding context. We need to get rid of this, because we're going to do that in the back end. So this is going to break right off. So we need let's run it and make sure it works. It's not going to show everything we had before, but let's see if it works. Okay, no service for type. Okay, so we need to configure that. Do we have to do that for each one? That would be a pain in the service collection. Whew. Oh, that still works. All right, so let's wire up that so we can actually navigate, see what it does. Flying header, image button, ellipse. Select game, on, tapped. Actually, let's just hook it up to the button for now. So image button, clicked, and we will go to campaigns. Make it async. All right, so I didn't get that far with my notes. So that is going to have to wait for next week. I think we're going to call it a night. I think it's not didn't take quite as long as I thought it was going to take. We will definitely have more stuff to show for next week. I'm going to be putting this up on GitHub along with commits as we go along each week. So let me know what you're interested in the future. If you have a particular topic you want to cover from start to publish that's appropriate, and if it's something later on, then I can get to it later on. If it's not something I can get to immediately, and I will keep that in my notes. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow whatever platform you're on. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out tonight. Hope we can do more of these. Once again, have a good night, and I will talk to y'all. Schedules for streams. So on Monday nights at 8 a.m., I'm doing coding for beginners. It's for C#, just sort of the basics and going through that. I should probably wrap that up in a couple of weeks. And then I might expand this series to 2 nights a week. We'll see what it looks like in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, for most of my stream last night, I did not have my microphone on. So there was no sound, so I'm gonna have to go back and edit that YouTube or that video and post it with me talking over it. Unfortunately, I will probably be working on that later tonight. Tuesday nights is my mobile development from start to publish. That's this night. So next week we will be going deeper into navigation. And then Fridays is game night. Right now I'm focusing on Valheim. If you're interested in learning about that game, be sure to come out on Friday night and watch. And then I will be doing some gaming off and on at unscheduled times. So make sure you follow to get notifications when those start. But if you need to look at my schedule again, it's on Twitch. I'm going to be putting it on my other platforms as well, so you can easily find it. And hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. And we have also a Discord that's available through the website or through the other platforms if you have any questions. Thank you all for coming, and I will see you later.
Mic off.